As you can see, these are the sketches that I created offline. Both of them an asymmetrical and a symmetrical one. Now we're going to recreate them in the computer. Okay, I'm going to do this Illustrator demo very quickly. You can watch the InDesign one and kind of see my thinking, but if you want to use Illustrator, you can just watch this video for the technical stuff. It's up to you. All right, so I opened up Illustrator. It's AI, again on the launcher or rocket ship, it's AI. InDesign is ID. Illustrator is AI. I have it on my dock. I'm going to hit Create New. Again, we want print. And we want to choose inches. I want it 6 by 6. The artboards, you can have more than one. It gives you more pages if you want to think about it like that. You could also do it in layers. It's a little bit different. We can actually duplicate an artboard. So I'm just going to keep it as one. I don't want any bleeds. We want to change this to RGB and 300 PPI is correct. I hit create. Okay, so it generated it. Some of my palettes are expanded. I'll just kind of close them a little bit. Put this over here, pops in there. So the layers palette is really kind of important. So I'm going to pull that out and I'm not going to deal with the library. So I'll keep that out. And obviously it's one layer. Now we also need a bounding box on here. So again, use your square and you can hit Option 6 by 6. Okay. This time, an Illustrator comes in with a 1-point black, which is different than InDesign. And I'm going to pop that in right there on the center mark. It says so in the center. Boom. That's on my layer 1. I can make a new layer and I can go back and I can lock layer 1 down. So now my bounding box is there. So now I'm going to start working. So again, you use your type tool, click. I like to actually have my character up. And again, if you don't see the same palettes, you can go over here and choose, typography palettes if you want, or essentials. You can go to window and there's a whole bunch of palettes. You could use your type and then character palette. I'm going to use Bodoni again, and I'm going to use bold. We're going to start off with, again, that 72. And here in Illustrator, you just click. You don't have to click and drag. And it gives you this lorem ipsum, which is Greek text, just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. And again, I'm going to try that lowercase n. If I click on the Move tool, you can see that I have a red line here. That's your baseline. If you take a graphic design class, you'll learn about the baseline. I'm going to use my free transform tool. And I'm going to, again, hold the Shift key down and make it much larger. So you see this bounding box. We want to get rid of that when we're ready, right? I'm ready because I don't want to fool with it anymore. I'm going to go to Type, Create Outlines, just like in InDesign. Boom, kind of focuses in on that. And in InDesign, I would have to do one extra step to see all of these points, but we're not going to stretch the points. We just want, holding the Shift key down, the ability to make our type larger, right? So again, I'm gonna recreate this really fast. So I want to make another one. I'm going to do Edit, Copy, and Paste. Again, I'm going to rotate. Here's your rotation tool. And you can actually Option click and just to 180 and it does it really fast, or you can click and drag. I'm going to again put it up here where it was before. We want it like that, I think, somewhere right in there. This, I believe, has to get a little bigger. I'm going to use my free transform tool. Right? Something like that. So it's some of the same tools. Some of the same things are happening, right? That touching is really important, right? Now, I need the O back, but I've already created them. So I need to click again, hit O. If you want to do an uppercase O, it gives you a little bit more negative space. I'm going to use a lowercase o, just like I did before. Again, free transform. make it larger, type, create outlines. Here it is. I know I had one down here that was quite large, but just use the black space or the figure, right? So that needs to get a little bit larger because that space needs to get kind of more interesting looking. I think it was kind of like that. I'm going to pinch down, right? And I'm going to edit, copy, edit, paste. Make another one. And again, we kind of use our free transform tool, make it a little bit bigger, and start to try to get that to come forward. Now, it is very distracting with Illustrator that all this stuff is on your pasteboard because you can't really see things, too well. I'm going to suggest that you make a compound path. I'm going to show you how to do that. As opposed to InDesign, it just crops it out because it's a layout program. This is actually a drawing program, so it's slightly different. So what we want to do is we're going to make 2 squares. I'm going to make a new layer. So I'm going to lock this down. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to use 1 square here, the size of it, and I'm going to drag another big one, like that big, okay? And I can't necessarily see, they're both on the same layer. I know the other square is underneath it, so I could actually take this square, object, arrange, send to back. Oops. I know the other square is right there. So I can grab this one, shift, hold, and grab the other one and hit object, compound path, make. And it hits it, like it makes a hole right in your objects. It's awesome. And I don't want it to be black. I want it to be white. You can keep it black if you want. It's totally fine. It's up to you. I'm going to change it just for my eyesight to white. Okay. So that actually is on its own layer. You can turn it off and on. You can lock it down, but it actually helps you see the composition quite nicely. And it's on its own layer, which is beautiful. Next, I'm going to make another layer, but I'm going to move it again underneath this one. And I'm going to start on my next one, which is the O's, right? The symmetrical one. So I'm going to use my type tool. I know I'm on the right layer. I'm going to click. I'm going to hit O. And again, I'm going to use my free transform tool, make it larger, type, create outlines, much larger, make it go, I think it's over here. Now, this layer is on right now, so it's kind of nice because on the fly, I can start to see my relationships a little bit better. I'm going to edit copy. I'm going to edit paste, right? And then I'm going to move it over here. And just like InDesign, I need to get these to align. So you grab this one and this, use my move tool, this one, and is my align up here? Yes, mine is. If yours is not, again, window, align right there, right at the top, right? I have mine up. So I'm going to align the bottom. So they're all synced up there. And I need one more, edit, copy, edit, paste. And I'm going to move this down here and they touch, right? And again, you can see those pink guides popping in and out, right? So now we have that ground coming forward. This is ground coming forward. This is a symmetrical design. Perfect. Now, that doesn't look exactly in the center. Again, you can select them all with your shift key down. And again, use those pink auto guides to kind of help you there. So that's plate 1, 2 versions. I lock it down. I can turn the eyeballs off and on. There's my asymmetrical one and my symmetrical one. I can continue in this same file and work on plate 2. I can, again, add another layer. And I'm going to use an uppercase N. And I'm going to make it larger. So now I'm working on, again, how much of the letter form do I need to show to understand what the letter form is, right? That's too much. Can I go like that? But that could look like an M. So maybe I need that. Ooh, because of the serif, that probably is enough. How much of that serif do I need? Do I need just enough, right? So again, you're kind of playing with how much do you need? if I want this to be bolder, this is already Bodoni bold, and I didn't change it yet to create outline, so I know it's a piece of type still. It's Bodoni bold, but I want it fatter. One of the things you can fudge is you can give it an outline. I'm going to give it a black outline, and I'm going to make it fatter. Now you are destroying the type a little bit, the type design, right? But for this project, that's okay. I'm not quite sure I really like that too much. I'm losing some of the prettiness of the curve. So I'm going to go back down to 4. Just want it a little bit bolder. I need that foot. If I go down and get rid of the foot, I could get rid of the foot. And does it look like an N? But for some reason, I really like that foot. It just gives me a nice base at the bottom. So one thing that you have to do here is you have to create a really interesting balanced composition. You have to delete enough of the letter form. I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger. And then you have to add in some special characters, right? And tell a story, right? So I got that. I think I have decided that that's how much letter I can delete, but still have it be read as an N. I'm going to put some special characters. So what are special characters? If you go to your type tool and you choose glyphs, these are a bunch of special characters, all the punctuation marks, the numbers, things like that, but not the letters. Okay, there's some, and in other fonts, there's really some interesting special characters. Change the font, right? You don't want to change the font midway. So I have to go back to Bodoni and use my Bodoni font here. But I actually would like to use some quotation marks. So what's nice about glyphs is you could either type them in yourself, right? There's a quotation mark, space, another quotation mark. You also, if I'm just going to click off, you also could click here and then double click and you get a glyph. Now I don't want that type. Do I want that type of a quotation mark? I could, but I kind of like the curly cues. It's kind of neat to explore the glyphs as special characters. If you have a question about special characters, let me know. I'm going to stick with the regular quotation marks here. And I want you to explore scale. So the one letter form is slightly reframed. We need this much. It's a really large letter form rather than quotation. I could explore where the quotation marks are really big. That might tell a different story. But I think I want the quotation marks to be really small. And I want you to add in a color to kind of explore what can color mean, what can it say to your story. So let me bring this up. I'm going to bring my swatches up. I'm going to highlight my color and I'm going to make it pink. And then let's see here. You also can explore some other color relationships, tints. I don't want it to be bold. I want it to be quiet. So I'm going to use a different color relationship there. And I'm using this negative space. What am I saying here? Maybe I'm saying protection, or I'm afraid, or I'm a little shy. So I'm hiding behind. It almost looks like a child, right? So I'm exploring those relationships in plate 2. I'm going to continue on plate 3. So again, I'm still in the same file here. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to lock this down, plate 2, and turn it off. Now, if you want to remember what things are, you can actually label these. Plate 2, plate 1, plate 1B, whatever you want to say. I'm back here. This is going to be my plate 3, right? And remember, this is my kind of border to help me kind of use the edges and not see them. So plate 3, you have to make a pattern. Now you have to find a pattern in nature. I think I found one. Let me share with you my Nautilus shells here. There they are, right? So I'm going to actually bring this in. And whoops, whoa, it's really quite large. So I'm going to use my free transform tool to make it much smaller using that shift key, right? So this is kind of my template here. This is what I'm trying to mimic, right? I'm on plate 3. I have this, I bring the image in just to kind of help me see. And I have to kind of look at it and say, well, what letter forms does it mimic first? It could be C's, it could be O's. I actually think it kind of mimics E's, right? So again, I don't have to use Bodoni, but I could. You could actually add another layer here, so I'm not working on the picture. I just did that. I click, I use the letter lowercase e. It's in black. I don't want it to be black. I do want it to be black eventually, but I can't really see it on the picture. So I'm going to just change it momentarily to be white. And I'm going to make it larger. And then I'm going to rotate it. Now you can go to your rotation tool, or again, you can use this. Do I really like this E? I'm not sure I do. Bodoni might not work for me in this one. Let's actually explore some others. So again, I'm still in the type. I'm in a letter form. I haven't changed it to create outlines. You know, on the fly, you can look at some of these things. It will do this for you. And I have to find an E that feels rounded. Futura might do that. Look at that. That's kind of an O. Avant-garde. I'm not sure if I have avant-garde. Arial, maybe. I used to have avant-garde. I don't. So let's see. Athletas. That's kind of nice. But Avenir is pretty. I'm going to go with Avenir actually. And then I'm going to choose heavy. Some of these you have, some of these typefaces you have, some of you don't. It basically is what you have. So you'll have to kind of explore that on your own. So I'm going to rotate that kind of like that to mimic this up here. And again, this is my bounding box. And I can, again, rotate, whoops, I can rotate this a little bit more. Right around there. Trying to mimic it just a little bit. I'm going to need to make it bigger. Now I'm pretty comfortable and I don't want this bounding box. I'm going to do create outlines. That will be very helpful for me. And now I'm going to copy paste. And I'm going to rotate it again. That kind of goes like that a little bit. And I'm going to move it into place, sort of like that. And then I'm going to copy paste again. And this last one, I need to rotate it a little bit to get some diversity. You don't want it the same. It's going to kind of go like, kind of like that. All right. So I have this slight pattern. It is kind of going outside the bounding box. So when we create plate 3, I do want you to try to keep them inside the bounding box. If you want, you'll see what happens. I mean, you can be experimental. I'm going to actually make them pretty much smaller, get most of it inside the bounding box, right about there. That's pretty good. The last thing that you have to do is you have to create either a monochromatic, complementary, or analogous color scheme. So if we go back and I turn off the E's, this to me is more of an analogous color scheme, and I'm going to explore that. So I'm going to take one E and I'm going to make it kind of an orangey color. The next one, and I have this nice kind of rainbow color palette here, I'm going to use a more orange, a more kind of true orange. This is like a red orange. And then I'm going to choose this one and I'm going to maybe use a red, right? So that's an analogous color scheme. I could even be more playful and use this red, right? If I want, I could definitely, I'm using that orange and I'm using, yeah. So those are pretty good. Try not to make them, I only have 3 elements. So now I'm going to turn my image off and I have this right here. That is based on a natural pattern. What we're going to do next is use Adobe Capture to make this into an experiment with making real patterns. So I made a motif. This is my motif based on a pattern from nature. How do I get this into Adobe Capture? You save it out, you export it as a JPEG. Again, JPEG. I'm going to call this plate free pattern or motif. I'm sorry, motif. Put it on my desktop and export it. RGB is fine, 300 dpi, hit OK. Where do we want to put this? We want to actually put this in our photos. So get your photos up. Here's actually one of the patterns I've created earlier. And I'm going to just drop this in to my photos and it's going to be ready to go. I have to go to the iPad now to show you how to use Adobe Capture.